Ryan Stiles, the man with the plastic face, became famous on The Drew Carey Show. He's also well known for Whose Line Is It Anyway? This interview with Ryan, if you can call it that, was in 2010.
How does a kid who is born in Seattle end up going to high school in Richmond, British Columbia?
I moved up when I was 10. My dad was in the fishing industry, so he moved up and started up here and didn't want to come. It's hard when you're 10 to move out of your place, and ended up in Richmond. And at that time, it was kind of a farming community still, blueberries and ditches. And went to Richmond High. I didn't last long there. I didn't make it all the way through, but I'll go back and get it. My mom wants me to go back and get my high school diploma. So.
Oh, you're going to do it for her?
I might, if I can find some time.
You must have known what you wanted to do. What were your dreams then?
I know I didn't want to be in the fishing industry, that's for sure. And I used to go down to Punchlines, and you remember Punchlines. And I would start, my dad, because he was the boss, always gave me the worst job, so I was the one dressing the fish. So I would start that about 4 a.m, then go down and do stand-up at night and be smelling like fish, and have a few drinks after, and then go back at 4 a.m. and cut fish open again. So I knew I didn't want to do that. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just didn't want to do a regular job and be bored at it. So things just kind of fell in place for me. I never really kind of pursued anything, but everything just kind of happened.
Were you a breakup in class? Like, would you get them
I guess
laughing?
I was. People tell me I was, but I remember the teachers were always sad that they had to kick me out of their class, so there must have been something going. I'm very sorry, but you can't come back. So I think the teachers liked me. I just never attended school. I started doing stand-up. At that time, stand-up wasn't like it is now.
No.
It was kind of at a lull. It was during that David Brenner kind of era, and every city didn't have a stand-up club. And, so when I told my parents I was going to do that, I had a lot of seniority down at the fish place, so to quit that and go do stand-up underage at strip clubs in Vancouver, they weren't really into that, but it paid off all right. You tried to write your own stuff, but it all depended where you were. They didn't want to hear my Dolly Parton routine at the Drake. You just went to the back of Playboy and found some jokes there when you were playing the strip club. So, but then, and that's the thing I hated about stand-up after a while, was trying to write material. That's why I got into improv. You don't have to think about anything. But that was the hardest part for me, was writing material. I always enjoyed being on stage. It was slow, but you made a living. I remember my wife, I'd go out for 2 weeks when we lived up here, and I'd play strip clubs and discos at that time, And I'd play for 2 weeks and make $200, and it was all in 1s and 5s because the bartender paid, I remember going home and she'd be in bed and I'd throw it on her thinking, we're rich, And I could never understand, people who started out and a woman sticks by them when they make no money, and then they suddenly get a little money and they drop that woman and get another, who's obviously just there because you have money now, I never understood why anybody would drop anybody that stayed with you during the bad times like that. But that may change in a year.
Yeah.
I never know. Yeah.
The Drew Carey show was a great experience, though. Look at the exposure you had throughout North America.
Right, and Drew always tells me that he didn't want me for the show. He wanted the other guy. He makes sure to tell me that all the time. It was between me and another guy, and he tells me, I always wanted that other guy. I never really wanted you to do the show. But it was a middle America sitcom, and Drew was very popular at that time. And the show went for 9 years, which is a long time for a sitcom.
Oh boy,
a long time. And Whose Line Counting Britain went 13 years, so three in the States, and
Well, the British one I don't know much about, but you had to go to England to do it, right?
Right, yeah.
Was it shown in North America on PBS or anything? Or?
Comedy Central picked it up after about the first 3 years. It was always a huge hit in Britain.
Yeah.
The first year was actually on radio. It wasn't even on television, which is very odd. And then it got to the point where when we first started, it was 3 Brits and an American. Then it got to be 2 and 2, and then and the last couple of years there was no Brits on the show, so it made sense to bring it over here. You have to be with people that you trust, and working on that show. I mean, Colin Mockery was on it, and I've known Colin over 30 years, So it's a matter. As a matter of fact, the group we work with now, Jeff Davis is the new guy with the group, and he's only been with us 9 years. So. That's how long we've worked together, all these people. And that's what it is on stage. It's just trusting who you're on stage with. So
You're a family guy. You have children, right?
I have 3 kids. Yeah.
So is that tough going on the road like this with Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Well, that's not bad. When I was doing Drew and Whose Line, my family still lived up here in the Northwest, and we worked 3 weeks on and a week off. So I saw my family 1 week every month for 9 years, and I have an 18 and a 16 and a 6-year-old now. So I told them when those shows ended that I was going to stay home for a while. I had a newborn, and that's why I built my theater in Bellingham, because I could do without TV or film, but I need to get on stage. So it was kind of a selfish thing to build this theater for myself. And they run the whole thing for me. I'm like Ricky Ricardo, I just show up at the club and I leave, But It's not bad because I can pick when I want to go out, and we don't do that many dates a year. We'll do maybe 40 gigs a year, so I can spread it out. And it's better than being down there on a sitcom constantly.
What's the name of your club in Bellingham again?
The Upfront. Yeah, it's right downtown, right on Bay Street down there.
Upfront.
The 6th year we just went into, yeah.
But that was a smart move because you can always, like you say, do what you love.
Well, I was when I got back from doing Whose Line and moved back to Bellingham, there was ads in the paper that they had improv classes going. So I dropped by one, much to the shock of the teacher who was teaching the thing, because I wanted to take the class, And I found out there was people that had been doing improv there for 3 or 4 years in these classes that had never been on a stage before. So I said, I'll build this place for you, but you guys have to run it. I don't want anything to do with it.
Right.
And they have. And there was at the Chicago Film Festival this year, they only take 40 groups from around the world, and they took 2 of my groups from the club. So
what a compliment
it's
that
pretty
is.
Cool. And I think the Pacific Northwest lends itself, this whole triangle of Calgary, Alberta, Washington State, Oregon, improv is really good in that triangle. And I think it's because of the weather. I think it's when it's really rainy and ugly, you want to be inside creating, And that's why when Second City moved to LA, it didn't last because nobody would, It was nice out, And there they don't drink, they'll have a Perrier. And, those clubs make all their money off booze, right?
Of course.
Second City, and they wouldn't drive from the Valley to Santa Monica to see a show. It was too far in traffic.
How did you end up with a recurring role on 2.5 Men?
Chuck Lorre, who's the exec producer on it, did Dharma and Greg as well, and I did a couple of appearances on Dharma and Greg, so he knew me from there. And it started out as a one-shot deal, and I really wanted to do it because he approached me and said, the characters got a little more big as the years have gone by, but the first episode's pretty straight. And I wanted to do something that wasn't Whose Line, where I was big and gaggy playing a moose, and wasn't Drew, where it was still big and gaggy. I wanted something where I played a little more real, so that's originally why I did it. And then I think they wrote something that was a little bigger in one episode. Now it's just getting bigger and bigger. And actually, as the child on the show gets older, it gets a little dirtier now too. When he was a little kid, they couldn't be that dirty. But now he drives his own car to work. So
So it could be a little more risque.
But he's a good kid, and they're good people on that show. And I've known Charlie. I did both Hot Shots movies, so I've known Charlie since there. And John Cryer actually did one of those movies as well. So. But it's not like a Drew set. A Drew set is it was loose, and we could throw stuff in and add stuff. The writers on 2.5 Men are pretty solid, so by the time the script gets there, it's good. So you just stick to what they have and do your job, and they're very nice and treat you well. But it's not that. I mean, Drew was ridiculous. How loose that show was. So
you could feel it though.
Yeah.
I think that's part of its success.
Yeah, and Drew is always open to, if you want to throw stuff in, during tape nights, you do it the way they wrote it, and throw that in, what you did in rehearsal. He was always into that. So I don't really want to work that hard anymore, Red.
No.
I want to play golf, and we've got chickens and bunnies, and we live on a lake, and it's perfect, I got my club, so I can still go perform, and that's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, you seem like a happy guy.
I am.
Life's been good.
They used to, every year at Drew, you had to have a physical at the beginning of every year for insurance purposes. And when I lived down there, my blood pressure was always high. And when we moved up here, and I went back down to do Drew, that first year I said, how's my blood pressure? He goes, fine, normal. It was just from living up here.
Yes.
I'll be in Bellingham and I'll realize I haven't heard a car horn in like a month, And people are just rude in LA, and there's traffic everywhere, and I think everybody wants to make enough money to get out of LA.
I think that's true.
I think that's the goal now.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy where I am, and I love that the weather's getting ugly now. It's going to be raining soon. I love putting on jackets and layering. I just love the whole thing.
You love the seasons like I do.
I do, and this is the best season right here.
We're Northwest kids. Looking forward to seeing you at the theater, and last year you came, and I hope you bring the crew back again next year.
I hope so too. Yeah, it's a lot of fun there. We enjoy it there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Red.